everybody. Oop, wrong button. Erase that. Hey, welcome back. It is time for equivalent fractions strat number 3, which is fraction circles. This can be a combination of one or two. We can use pieces like we used in the fraction bars strat, or we can use drawings like we used in the partitions drawing strat. So, when you are ready, please write this in your notebook, and after you have written it as your next page, close it up, concentrate through the I do, and you can open it back up when we get to we do. Alright, so let's review real quick our strats so far, strategies so far. First one, I'm back at fraction bars ABC. Or if you have the app, the Virtual Manipulatives app on your device. And if I was looking for a, fractions equivalent to, let's say, 1/2, our first strategy was to use the bars. And so let me turn my snap feature on. And to say, I can use the bars to find a fraction equivalent to 1/2 by snapping them together. And 3/6 is equal to 1/2 based on what I see here. But the thing's not moving. Here we go. Say 3/6 is equal to 1/2 with my bar strategy. And then we also use the strategy where we partition the drawings, if you'll remember so far. So like I would take a rectangle and draw a half. This, say, highlight my 1/2. And I could partition it to get fractions equivalent to 1/2. So like if I partition it once the other way. Oh, come on. There we go. I would now get, that's the exact same fraction. I didn't change the amount. But now it's 2 out of 4 are shaded. And I don't know, instead of partitioning it once, I could have also partitioned it twice. And now I've got the one I just showed you, right? 1, 2, 3 out of 6. So 3/6 is also. And I could partition it however I wanted. This one shows you the same thing that this shows you. 1/2 equals 3/6. And 1/2 equals 3/6. So today's strategy, we're going to do the exact same two things, just instead of doing it with a rectangle here and a rectangle here, we're going to do it with circles, just in case that works better for you. So let me show you. So here's our examples we've been doing for the last two strategies, and let me show you with a third strategy. So are these equivalent, 4/8 and 1/2? I know you've done these two other ways, but let's do it two other ways. So first thing, in my fraction tool here, my ABC or my Virtual Manipulatives app, if I go to my settings here, instead of doing tiles, I can do circles. Look at that. And with the circles, I'm going to make sure my snap feature is already also on. I can take 1/2, and I can compare that to 4/8, like my problem asked for, and see if they're the same. So 1, 2. Sorry, I'm in trouble with this. Switch to my mouse here. I'm trying to do this with my pen. Well, it won't snap together for me. Snap on. Show numbers. Well, I'm having a little trouble here with these snapping together. 1, 2. Alright, so sorry I had to start there, pause there and start over. Having a little trouble with my app here. So let me show you how this works again. So here's my 1/2, and I want to see if that's equivalent to 4/8. So if I take this half that's kind of facing this way, when I go get my 1/8, I'm going to have to choose the ones that kind of are in the same spot. So like I want to see if I can rebuild that with the exact same ace. So I took that one. Now I'm going to take this one because it fits together with that one well. Get it just right. Then this one. Then this one. And if I do it just right, you'll notice I can make those overlap perfectly. Whoa. Where my 1/8 and my 4/8 show the same fraction with the circles. So that's how I do it with the tiles, and I do in the room, I also have these little pieces, just like I have the fraction bars. And if I want to do it with a drawing, because the pieces are not convenient, I can do that too. I can partition the same way as I did with drawing the rectangles. So what I'm going to do, remember I talked about when we did partitioning with rectangles, I start with my smaller denominator because it's easier to partition upward than downward. So I'm going to partition this to halves. So here's my 1/2. Highlighter. And it doesn't matter. I could have done the other half too. I'm just picking this side. So this is what 1/2 looks like. And I'm going to see if I can partition it to 4/8. So I can partition across once and get 2/4. And then I can partition like this. Gotta do it evenly, as evenly as you can. But as long as all your partitions go all the way across the circle, you'll be okay. And now I've got my same thing, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8 total partitions. So same thing as with the rectangular drawing, I'm just doing it with circles. Let's do another one. So how about our 7/10 and 1/2 equivalent? So if I go to my pieces here, let me start a new one. 1/2, I'll do this half. And now when I go to my tenths, I gotta get the ones that are gonna kind of line me up here with my half. So the ones that fit the same part I'm using. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10. Looks like that's my half. So when I go to 7/10, 6, 7, it just doesn't work. It's not equivalent to my 1/2. You can see it's a good bit more than a half. So just like we've said the last couple of days, I would say that, oh, where'd it go? Did I erase? Undo. There we go. So this one I would say no. 7/10 was obviously more than 1/2. So I would say that. Drawings. Draw my circle. And make my half. Partitioning tenths is not going to be super easy but on a circle, but you can do it. So here's half, and I've got to have 5 on each side after I've partitioned to have tenths. 5 on each half to make 10 total partitions. So I'm going to go won't go right through the middle. Be kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not perfect. I made this one a little too big. But as you can still see even here, my 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10, not 7/10. To do 7, I would have to do 2 more pieces. Like I need 6, 7. And so no, it's not. 7/10 is more. Okay? And find a fraction that is and is not equivalent to 2/5. So same thing with my drawing. All I have to do, fifths are a little bit of a trick to do. I'm going to go look at my pieces and see how that's divided up. I can't just cut down the middle in half because fifths don't work like that. It's kind of like a star pattern with my cuts. So kind of go to your middle, do kind of like this to get fifths. 1, and you cut these in half. And there's my fifth. Not too bad. 1/5. and 2/5. Doesn't matter which two. And so to get an equivalent vector, I'm just going to partition it. So I'm going to take each piece and divide it into the same amount of new pieces. So I could cut each ones, let's say, in two. So maybe I'll take this one, I'll cut it in 2 new pieces. I'll cut this one in 2. Cut this one in 2. 2. 2. If I do that, now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 6/15 is equivalent. And I could have partitioned it in 2, 4, whatever. And to find one that is not equivalent, take your pick. If 6/15 is equivalent, I know, say, 10/15 is not too big. All right, open up your math notebook. Let's do a couple together. So are these equivalent 3/4 and 5/8? If you want to do it with your app, go ahead and do it with me. Obviously won't be able to write this down, but if you want to do this with your app, 3/4 and 5/8. So here's my fourths. I'll do 1, 2, 3/4. I don't know why my snap's not working. I have snap turned on. It must not work on the circles. And here are my eighths. I got to pick ones in the same place. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is not going to be enough. I can tell that 3/4 is a little bit bigger than the 5/8, so I would say no. 3/4 is more than 5/8, greater than 5/8. With my drawing, go ahead and draw yourself a circle and chop it into fourths. Hi-ya, hi-ya. And highlight 3. Whoops, highlighter. 1, 2, 3. And if I partition that into eighths, I have 4 pieces now, so if each piece gets cut into 2, I'll have 8. So now, sometimes I put the ones I add in, I should have shown you this. I like to sometimes put the ones I add in like in dots or something. So like, I can see that I started with 3/4 and like changed it to 5/8 with some like dots or something like that. And now I can obviously see that this is 1, 2, 3, 6/8 is equal to 3/4, not 5/8. All right. One more, 2/3 and 8/12. So to check that one, thirds are also a little tricky to draw, kind of like fifths. You have to go down to your middle and then do a third like this and a third like this. 1, 2, 3 to make them kind of even. And I'm going to color in 2. 1, 2. And let's see, to partition into 12, right now there's 3 pieces. So I think I'm gonna have to cut each piece in 4 to get 12 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shaded out of 9, 10, 11, 12 total. And so they are equivalent. Get that. 2/3 and 8/12. So if I partition, I get the same thing. All right, and last but not least, find something equivalent to 2/6. Sixths I draw by cutting in half, and then cutting each side into 3, kind of like that. 1/6, 2/6. And so when I get to make any one I want, it does not matter how many partitions I change this into. 2, 3, 4, 5. The easiest one's always just to take each partition and cut it in 2. And then I can say 2/6 is equivalent to 1, 2. I didn't do this one, did I? No, I did. Did I? I got something wrong here. Let me go back. My partitions don't look right.